Hello, this is Mark Goodyear. Welcome to this classic album, Revisited. It's Manic Street Preachers' powerful and emotive 1996 album, Everything Must Go.
First time we played Design for Life was supporting Stone Roses at Wembley Arena. Quite strange. I couldn't quite tell whether people connected with that song or not. I couldn't tell whether we connected with it. So suddenly it would come from the singer recording it and then taking it on stage in front of Stone Roses crowd. Didn't quite know. I didn't quite know where we were. I loved every part of being in the studio. Mike was very much an old school producer who believed in creating an environment and just everybody just really getting on. And you knew that from 10 till 6 in the day, you know, you had a good 8 hours of recording and nothing else.
When Manic Street Preachers regrouped in the summer of 1995 to record their fourth album, their guitarist and lyricist Richey Edwards had been missing for 6 months. Suffering with depression, he mysteriously disappeared on February the 1st. Edwards was known for his dark, intellectual lyrics, evident on the Manics' third album, The Holy Bible, which, combined with his enigmatic and eloquent character, had assured Richey cult status. Lead vocalist and guitarist, James Dean Bradfield.
We'd sat round, you know, in each other's houses and in our management's office and in rehearsal rooms, not quite knowing what our situation was, whether Richey was ever going to come back. And we didn't know whether we were still a band without him. You know, it really was, everything was so nebulous and troubled, you know, so it's a very, very weird atmosphere. But after 6 months, I think, we decided that the only thing we could do was write some songs and see how we felt. And as soon as you make a decision like that, you know that the stakes are very, very high, because you know that amidst Richey's absence and his disappearance, there are so many questions, but also that if you put yourself back into the fray as a band, you're still going to be judged on the music you release. So everything felt quite delicate, everything felt quite just very confused. So the one thing that we did know was that any song that we released that would represent a new album had to be amazing. We didn't even say that to each other. It was a very tacit understanding, but we just knew the stakes was high, because people will be looking to see if we're a much lesser band without Richey. But we just wanted to prove that undoubtedly we would be a different band, but we would still be amazing. Jumping forward, we had written some songs, Design for Life being one of them, and we invited Mike Hedges to Cardiff to watch us rehearse. We played him Design for Life once, then he asked to hear it again. He obviously loved it the first time, and he said, I don't care if I don't do an album with you, but as long as I get to produce that song, that's all I want to do. He said, of course I want to do an album with you, but I really want to produce that song. And that was a really pivotal, important moment, because we needed confidence. We were lacking confidence, we were lacking identity, we were lacking certainty in any kind of way. And for him to say that, and for somebody that we admired so much to say that, was a massive shot in the arm for us. I don't think there are many examples where every line of the song means something. Every line in that song, Library gave us power, work came and made us free. What price now for a shallow piece of dignity? I wish I had a bottle right here in my dirty face to show the scars from where I came. You know, we don't want to get drunk. We just talk about love, and we are not allowed to spend because we are told this is the end. It talks about boom and bust economy. It talks about how the gap between the haves and the have-nots, where, you know, the haves kind of don't give a damn about tax, but, you know, the have-nots are constantly preached to about kind of not spending above their means, just be covered in one line, and we are not allowed to spend because we are told that this is the end. So concise. So that's just an amazing lyric from Nick. It's absolutely pinpoint every line. We're asked Mike Hedges to produce the Holy Bible, because he'd produced some of my favourite records ever. He'd produced Story of the Blues by Wah. He'd produced a lot of Banshee stuff, a lot of Cure stuff, Associates, just so many records which I loved. So we kind of quickly played in some other songs, Kevin Carter included. Then Nick and Sean went home, and I took him out to a few pubs in Cardiff, and we got hammered. I mean, we didn't get hammered, we got panelled. He had never drunk this Welsh beer called Brains before. And yeah, we were really, I mean, it was big time drunk. And Mike is 6'7" and I'm 5 foot, 5-ish kind of thing. And so it was quite a strange sight seeing me leading back to the train station. It looked like Danny DeVito and Arnie Schwarzenegger in Twins, you know. And so that was a good start. It really was a good start. And then a month later, we find ourselves in France doing our first session with him, Design for Life and Kevin Carter. And I don't know whether it was serendipity. I don't know whether it was we were dealt some good fate after what we had been through. But everything just clicked straight away. Design for Life and Kevin Carter, we came back and they were mixed, but already they sounded amazing. Richey had investigated the story about Kevin Carter. They had taken a famous photograph, what you would call a definitive famine photograph of a child dying and a vulture waiting right behind it, which you can't get away from the darkness of that. It's just unfathomably bleak, grim, and just tragic. And Kevin Carter had won a Pulitzer Prize. Work that he'd done like that was the reason why he'd won that prize. And subsequently, he'd become very troubled and very conflicted about the whole thing. And he committed suicide. So, yeah, not a terrible story, really. And I think what compels us to write songs is sometimes other people's inspiration, sometimes other people's misery, no doubt. And at least that takes you out yourself. It takes you out of the arena of written something which is ego-driven. I mean, Kevin Carter was a hit. It's bizarre. You know, it was a proper hit. I think it's easier to write this stuff when you're younger, because you do tend to approach it feeling a little more invincible. You feel as if you can do anything. Whereas if you try to do stuff like this when you're older, you question everything. And you question the validity of just turning it into music even. Well, when you're young, you just face things face on. You know, you just go into them face on, you charge into it.
No surface, all feeling, with lyrics by Nicky, but Richey Edwards still looms large over this Manic Street Preachers album. 5 of the 12 tracks feature his lyrics. On the album's only acoustic track, Richey explores how the confinement of zoo animals is a major affront to their natural state, which can cause them to become ill. He'd been inspired by a TV documentary exploring the subject and wrote the song Small Black Flowers That Grow in the Sky. This is where memory becomes very troubling to me, because I know the documentary. It's buried in my mind. I know the documentary that it was based upon, that Richey had watched, but I can't remember what it was called. I remember him telling me about it. One day that might come back to me. No, I don't think you'll ever find it. And anyway, I remember him giving me this lyric, and we had done the demo. When I read the lyric, I wanted it to be like I think it's a Rolling Stones song called The Spider and the Fly. I wanted it to be quite a skeletal kind of acoustic experience. And I remember all of us just loving this song, and we didn't really want to change it when we went on to master it that much. We just added the harp to it. I remember myself and Richey driving back to the MC Hotel, and it was almost like a scene from a film. We pulled into the underground car park in his Vauxhall Astra. Oh, the glamour. I remember that song finishing as we parked. It just stopped, and he went, "That's my favourite song we've done so far." So I know that he loved that song, which is it does mean something. And then when we went to record it, Mike agreed he didn't want to do much to it, and he wanted to put harp on it. He said, "Oh, I know a harp player. She's Frank Sinatra's harpist." I was like, "Oh, wow, yeah. If I can meet the lady that's played Summer Wind, then, you know, yeah, that's great for me." So he got Frank Sinatra's harpist to play in it, and he just finished it off. It was beautiful. I played this song to Richey once on the acoustic guitar, and it is very prescient. I think the secret to a lyric like that is
is that amongst it all, Richey is even asking the question, does authenticity even matter? Kind of thing, you know. So that was always the sting in the tail with the Richey lyric. It wouldn't just be about the one thing, there would be the question there too. They are old school Richey lyrics, you know, 20 foot high on Blackpool Promenade, fake royalty, second-hand sequin facade, I think. So, yeah, there's a lot of syllables in there. I envisaged it being like Wire, a post-punk group from the late 70s. 20 foot high on Blackpool Promenade. And it was very breakneck speed, post-punk kind of song. And then I remember taking that into the rehearsal room with Nick and Sean and them saying, no, it doesn't go like that. It's got to be a bit more like some of the other songs we recorded. And I put the tag at the end with the American Trilogy, a little pastiche at the end. Because it seemed like an obvious thing to do, to have this image of a faux version of Elvis amongst very British, dare I say, English setting. So I heard that, and I heard what the lyric was trying to do. You know, it questions what authenticity is. So I wanted to make the music quite real, to counter that. So I was quickly corrected by Nick and Sean, and it grew into this thing that has a touch of old school 70s rock about it, I suppose. Really. I remember when we did the initial recording, and it was very rough and unmixed. I remember Rob Stringer, Martin Hall, our manager, and Mike Hedges all saying that it reminded them of Queen a bit. Very early Queen. That was quite interesting that people saw that, which I found confusing, but people always said that I had a touch of the Mercury's in my vocal kind of thing. I loved every part of being in the studio. Mike structured things in a bit of a different way. We're at a place called Chateau Rougemont in Domfront, which is in Normandy. A very classic, kind of like, you know, French rambling chateau. With slightly faded grandeur about it. Mike would demand that we started around about 10 in the morning, and then we would finish just before dinner. So when the session started, dinner would start around about 8. And that was okay. Then dinner would start again, pushed forward to around about 6. And dinner would be enormous. You know, there would be 3-bean soup, super pea stew. There would be just beef bourguignon. There would just be, you know, just coq au vin. There would just be flans. It would just be everything, you know, meats, just like, you know, cured fish. Nick really, this is where Nick hit his wine phase. He really got into wine. And there would just be beautiful bread and hams and cheese in the fridge. I never recovered from it. I've been a chunky Labrador ever since, you know. And you'd have such post-meal slump that you'd immediately have a sleep. You'd wake up, it'd be 9. And then you'd go to the pub, or I would go to the pub, and Nick and Sean would stay in the house. Sean would come out now and again. So as we were arriving, we'd arrive at the train station, and he would say, there's some food you're waiting for you. We've got some hot tarts in the kitchen for you, and stuff like that. Just very much an old school producer who believed in creating an environment and just everybody just really getting on. In the end, it worked out because we were starting earlier. You know, you had a good 8 hours of recording and nothing else. Australia nearly didn't make it. We had done a version of Australia with Stephen Hague, who produced, you know, Regret by New Order. And not by anybody's fault. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. Which just goes to show the chemistry between you and a producer can be nearly as important as the chemistry between a band. So we re-recorded a version and we gave it to Dave Ehringer to mix, who we'd done the second album with, and he mixed it and it turned out all right. And that was a great release. Nick had a few health issues as well, where his liver wasn't working the way it should, and Nick had this thing which was undiagnosed, and he'd written this lyric and he said, this is just a song about escape. It's just, if I think about escaping somewhere, it's always to Australia. I don't know why. It's a very simple lyric. I think shortly after that he said, I read this really good quote, Paul McCartney and John Lennon quote, where they said, should we do a swimming pool song? And what they meant by that was, it's probably something where we can buy another mansion with a swimming pool or something. I said, well, what would our version of that be? And I think we came up with Less Right, a kind of goals of the month song kind of thing, where it could be played behind sporting montages or clips or goal roundups. Just trying to create this shiny musical moment which could just get played in sporting programs and stuff. And it worked. It got used on the Nationwide League's goal roundup for about 4 years. Which was that really made me happy. It was nice to actually approach something in a very much more shallow, simple way, and to have it work was great. Girl I Want to Be God was a really good amalgam between Nick and Richey. It's where they wrote lyrics together for this one. Myself, Nick and Sean knew that we loved the idea of this song, and we just needed Nick to really add lots to it. And this is how stupid we are sometimes, or misguided. You know, we thought, yeah, this could be our ABBA lyric, because there were lines in there which just jumped up from the page, which just seemed quite ABBA-esque. And yes, important. A lot of people have always said that this is one of their favourite songs off the record. That's the closest we've ever got to a love song lyrically. Obviously, the lyrics are about Nick. It's not a song about how much you love somebody. It's a song about what distance does to you, what it does to your reality. The distance between home and your ambitions is sometimes quite unbearable. That's what the song's about. So kind of, yeah, lyrically and musically, yeah, it was just much more real. Musically, I saw that as being something different, and then, yeah, we were definitely going that direction of just wanting to breathe, wanting to perhaps be able to fly from the orbit of super reality. You know, we wanted some, not necessarily in the lyrics, but we wanted there to be some kind of escapism in the lyrics, where we just wanted to be uplifted, I suppose, by our own music, rather than be confronted by the reality of what we created. It's really simple. So it would have happened anyway, and strangely kind of fitted into the Britpop without us really knowing it, because I was aiming for something else on that song.
The big test for Manic Street Preachers was how fans would react to the new songs like A Design for Life live after the loss of Richey Edwards. The group would find out when they supported the Stone Roses.
Strange. I think the first time we played Design for Life was supporting Stone Roses at Wembley Arena. I remember Nick wore a Cardiff Red Devils ice hockey shirt on stage, which was bizarre in itself. I wore some nondescript kind of like Manics CNA top. I couldn't quite tell whether people connected with that song or not. I couldn't tell whether we connected with it. So suddenly it would come from the singer recording it and then taking it on stage in front of a Stone Roses crowd. Didn't quite know. I didn't quite know where we were. Then the next gig we did after that, I think, was we did a warm-up gig for supporting Oasis at Main Road at the Hacienda the night before. And Nick pretty much had a bit of an emotional breakdown that night. Just hit home that Richey not being there. We stepped on stage at Main Road to support Oasis, and it did click with the audience. Again, that was another moment of relief. It was just like, you know, there were lads there, you know, lots of lads, you know, kitted out in Man City tops. You know, it was massive at the time. 2 nights at Main Road, you know, that was big. And then it got bigger, obviously. But suddenly you're watching these lads, and they're proper football lads. Good boys, you know, but they were like, oh yeah, have you heard this one? It's good. Yeah, it's a good song, this. Yeah, don't mind this. And then they listened to Motorcycle Emptiness, and then they listened to us play From Despair to Away. So again, it was up and down, up and down, up and down. And then on Main Road, I was like, yeah, it will do it. Definitely. We're absolutely cursed, and we should have round about 7 #1 albums now, and we've always been pipped to the post by something gigantic or improbably, quirkily just big. Like, you know, The Greatest Showman on this record keeping us off #1, when we would have been #1 every other week, except for that. I can't be magnanimous in defeat to something like that. I just can't. Sorry, I'm a bitter person. Oh, it really matters. It still matters if you compare. I think if you're really into sport, which we all are, you believe in the spirit of being competitive and living and dying by it. Know Your Enemy was, like, you know, kept off #1 by Eva Cassidy, you know, lovely lady, and she'd passed away, and it was a posthumous record. Oh, wherever. I'm not going to go through the list. And Everything Must Go was kept off #1 as well. And Design for Life was kept off #1. I kind of accept Design for Life being kept off #1 because it was kept off #1 by Genius Pop Record. So it's Return of the Mac. You know, it's just a brilliant record. When pop is genius, I completely bow down to it. It's fine. It does matter, you know, if you're kept off #1 by something which you respect, that makes it easier to lose. But being #1 does matter. And we've missed out on so many #1 records now, just by something just flourishing and just coming from the ground up and beating us, pipping us at the post. And it happened with Design for Life. And it's weird because Design for Life sold so many records, you know, as a single. So yeah, those are the days where, when you had success, commercial success, across the counter, money changing hands success. Things just stayed around in the charts forever, you know, and there was a certain longevity to that. People always equate being rampantly commercially successful with that perhaps it's a sellout to it, but there was a longevity to it, you know, there was. Things just kept connecting with people. We had the Ivor Novello for Best Contemporary Song for Design for Life, which is probably one of my most favourite moments in the band, you know, is Ivor Novello, your famous Welshman thing, and getting that for Best Contemporary Song is one of the biggest things you can get. And Everything Must Go was never number one, but we got the Best Album, you know, and it sold 1.3 million in Britain alone, just in Britain, and it hung around in the charts for ages, but it was never number one. We were aware of a section of our crowd that were very much enthralled to the Holy Bible. It's very strange, you know. The first album was kind of big, you know, especially with Motorcycle Emptiness. Second album took that inevitable second album dip, but then the third album sold less than the second and the first album. But in a strange way, we seemed bigger. It seemed like we were the biggest cult band in Britain because our gigs were selling out, and suddenly our audience were turning up en masse, dressed in this military regalia and sailors' outfits and stuff and everything, you know, all the stuff that we were wearing. So we were aware that kind of like, you know, a lot of our crowd were very, very strictly adherent to what the Manic Street Preachers was about, and that was the Holy Bible. Suddenly this is what, you know, this became, you know, the touchstone for what the Manics should be. So when we came to release Design for Life and Everything Must Go, we were aware of this section of the crowd that only wanted to see the Holy Bible version of Manic Street Preachers, or wanted to see what Richey represented. And we didn't know how they were going to react to songs like Design for Life, Kevin Carter, Everything Must Go. So that's touched upon in the lyric, you know, we just hope that you forgive us because everything must go. We were aware that there could be a disconnect between what people thought was our defining moment, the Holy Bible, and this. Everything Must Go, ironically, managed to kind of come into existence and be accepted because Richey was still part of the record lyrically. Undoubtedly, Richey's influence is still born upon the record because his lyrics have influenced quite a lot of the music there. And it's cool. And it's a good period to look back on. And a lot of people say, oh, wasn't Britpop, like, you know, oh, everything got pigeonholed. I always get very confused when people look back at it like that. I was like, well, there was just lots of really good guitar music around. And lots of, you know, lyrically, things were quite interesting, you know? And he just had true working class expression with Oasis. It was working class rage. Do you see that happening much now? In the charts, in the top 10, being number one, ruling the world? No, you don't. So, you know, don't look back at it and think, oh, everything was pigeonholed. Don't be such a doofus, you know. It was a good time. It was.
You've been listening to our classic album, Manic Street Preachers, Everything Must Go. And my thanks to James Dean Bradfield. I'm Mark Goodyear. Thanks too to you for listening. The programme was produced by John Sugar. It was a Wise Buddha production.